Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Petroff. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Boris FX. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to show you what's new inside Continuum 2019, which we released yesterday. Joining us today are Continuum Senior Product Manager Peter McCulley. He'll be at the helm, along with Alan and Brian, who'll be answering all the questions. New inside Continuum 11 is the reboot of Particle Illusion. You'll be able to instantly create stunning real-time motion graphics. The new Mocha Essentials workspace includes 4 new spline tools. We now offer Mocha-driven point parameter tracking for effects like lens flares and spotlights. Title Studio adds real-time image processing shaders, new grids and guidelines, and a new on-screen text tool and text box. And you can now use external broadcast monitor support for Title Studio and the FX browser. If you have any questions during the course of the webinar, simply type in the question and we'll answer them as soon as we can. We've got tons of VFX prizes today. You have to stay till the end of the webinar in order to win one. We'd like to thank The Foundry, Avid, Vegas Pro, Future Media Concepts, Action VFX for all the prizes. And finally, if you want to follow us, we are on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Now, Peter, if you're ready, I'll switch you over to presenter.
Sounds good, Jessie. Thank you.
Okay, you should be all set.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. And assuming everybody can see what I'm seeing now.
Yes.
Super. Okay, thanks everybody for coming and joining us today. Yesterday, we launched Continuum 2019. And if you haven't downloaded it already, I encourage you to do so. It is packed full of great new tools and features. And we're going to have a look at some of those today. During this 1-hour webinar event, we're not going to have time to go through every single new feature and filter that we've added to the product. It's an enormous release for us. But one of the biggest features that we included in the product this time around is particle illusion. Yes. So I'm sure many people out there already are familiar with particle illusion. If you are not, it is, in a nutshell, a particle system designed for editors, not scientists. So what do I mean by that? I mean that this is an easy-to-use particle system. It's preset driven. In other words, it comes with, I think the last count was the 2,400 thousands, basically, of preset emitters. And these emitters are designed to make it easy for the every person, the every editor who doesn't have time to dig in and learn and fully understand a complicated particle system, give these people the tools that they need to produce effects such as this. And I'll show you a bunch of different examples. We'll just skip through a few examples of some of the things that you can do with particle illusion. Obviously, the creative options out there are endless, but I'll just show you a couple of examples, and then we'll dig in and have a look at the new custom user interface and start talking about what we've done with particle illusion to bring it to you guys. So here's an image that you can see. Obviously, there's some special effects going on there, right? We've got this a earth and a moon and some text on top and a lower third background and this explosion in the back. And if I were to turn everything off and show you what we started with, I mean, that's just the text on top of that image there. So we brought it from that to that. So we can make some really cool stuff very quickly and very easily. This is all GPU based, so all the rendering is done on the graphics card. And because it's not a CUDA based system, it doesn't rely on an NVIDIA card to render its result. That said, it'll render extremely fast on an NVIDIA card, but it'll also render equally fast on an AMD card. So regardless of the system that you have, whether it's a Macintosh with an NVIDIA or an AMD card, or whether it's a PC with either of those, you will get some very fast rendering times and be able to interact with most of the particles that you're designing in real time. So just by note, I'm on a Macintosh laptop here, and I'm using After Effects right now, the latest release of Adobe After Effects. And these are all HD size projects. So I'm just going to flip through another one. Here's another thing you might find interesting about particle systems, of course, right now is snow. That makes a lot of sense, right? So this is just a preset. It's just a drag and drop preset to create this effect. And then if I turn off that top layer, there's the source shot that I was working with, and this is the particles that are rendered in with this instance of particle illusion. Just skipped through a few more to give you an idea of some of the other things. You can create these great lower thirds, animated lower thirds. This took seconds to create, not minutes or hours, literally seconds. And there's another shot with multiple emitters in the scene. You can have as many emitters as you need to create the result that you're looking for. I've got a lower third coming across here, and I've got this background graphic happening over this gangster shot. Here's another shot that I created using particle illusion. And this one, I've got this animated lights in the sky behind what originally started out as a this like colored image like that. So I added some particles to it. I added some other continuum filters in it to give it some edge treatments. Here's another instance of where particle illusion was very easy to use and produced a really cool looking result. There she is looking nonchalantly at us at the camera while the room burns. There's another shot. Okay, lots of explosions. Explosions are, of course, like very eye-catching and sometimes can be very difficult and painstaking to create, but inside of particle illusion, these are just drag and drop effects. And keep going down to show you a few more examples before we dig into the UI. Here's another one, a very more obvious use of what you would have with some particle systems, the space shot of a ship exploding in space, and you've got the supernova exploding in the distance. So these are the real more obvious looks. Here's some a graphics element. So we start off with this, and I got some particle system rotating on top of it, and obviously some treatments on the background as well as the particle system, which we don't need to get into right now, but just to point out that they're there. Here's another quick explosion. So great at creating the explosion. This is not rendered. I'm just, you probably can't see how quickly it is, but I'm just dragging through in real time, and I'm watching this explosion occur. Multiple explosions, multiple emitters in the same scene in this particular shot. Then have another peek at a couple more. Here's another one with an animated lower third graphic over this car shot. Again, drag and drop. I just placed it in. It was all automatically animated. I didn't have to animate anything in that. And so let's come into this one. And in this one, this is again interesting example and interesting use of the particle system. So we've got this liner, this luxury liner, and it's of course spouting out some steam, and the steam comes from particle illusion. So there's some more examples. So what I'm going to do is just pop back into one of these shots. I'll go to this explosion shot, and I'm just going to delete particle illusion from that black frame, and I'm going to add it again and give you a short UI tour. So just drag particle illusion outside of the Basic Particles group. You can see it there on the right-hand side. It's just another one of the many particle systems that are included in Continuum 2019. And when I apply it to the shot, over in the control panel, I can see that I've got this button, Launch Particle Illusion. So in order to do anything with particle illusion except loading up a saved preset, which I could do by clicking here, I could load in maybe some dust floaters, or I could load in a drifting cloud and fog, or maybe some rising embers. These are some of the presets that factory ship with it. These were professionally designed by an artist that we contracted to do this. These are not my creations, but they are absolutely fantastic. And there's some lower thirds in there as well. But instead of using one of these, I'm just going to reset this, and I'm going to click on Launch Particle Illusion, and we will have a look at the full UI. So here it is. This is the brand new user interface that we created when we converted particle illusion from a 32-bit application into a 64-bit application. And particle illusion, as we all know, was the creation of Alan Lawrence when he created WonderTouch many years back, and was acquired then by GenArts, who continued the product, but it was still 32-bit. And then when BorisFX acquired GenArts, they acquired, of course, the rights to particle illusion. And it was still such a great seller that we decided that we need to revamp this. We brought it up to 64-bit with the help of a great engineering team, including the amazing Alan Lawrence. So down here in the left-hand side, you'll see there's this list. And in this list, I've got a search bar. So this is a new feature inside of the latest version of particle illusion. So in addition to being able to load in any number of emitters, and this factory ships with, as I said, about 2,400, you can add, duplicate, bring in your old PI3 emitter systems in here. They'll all work. But what's great is I can just click on this system now, And let's do a search on, say, explosions. And just type in the word, and there it is. Now all these preset particle systems, these emitters, which include an explosion, are included in my list. So right above that, right above this list, you'll notice there's another window there. There's an animation playing. This is, again, just another one of the emitter presets. You can see it's this like this gunshot that goes in and shatters a piece of glass, which is amazing. It's so much fun to like use some of these things. This is great. Just like drop it into a project, boom, you've got this great this animated particle system. But if I click on any one of these, I get an instant preview. And I've got a few different workspaces saved here. For instance, if I go into my view pull down, you'll notice I can go Command 1, 2, or 3 to switch some of these views. I wanted to show that to you because as I click through, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. You can see these are set up in different ways. And for what I'm going to do right now, which is like sift through some emitters because I want to like start creating some stuff, I'm going to use the view number 3, which is called Create. Now, in the Create view, we've got a larger preview window, and I can click in here and drag. I can click and just like have an instant preview of the animation that is included in this particular emitter preset. Now, I call it an emitter preset because, essentially it is a bunch of different emitters that are stacked together and built by professionals to create this finished look. So to use any preset in here, any of these emitters, I can select it. I can see I can preview it in the top left corner, and I can click anywhere in the screen to add it. And as I scrub through the timeline here, we can see there it is added to the scene. I'm just going to undo that move using Command Z because if I double click it, it'll now automatically be added to the center. But notice one thing here. At the beginning, the particles aren't playing. Well, there's a reason for that too, because just like in Particle Illusion 3, if you are parked other than frame 1, the emitter that you choose to add in to that scene is added at that point in time. But you can change that, obviously. You see this nice new user interface piece that we've added in here, which gives you a very clean and clear view of where that particle system is going to start. So it says start frame 28, so this is frame 28 in there. You see it updates on the fly as I'm dragging through, which is super nice. And it gives me the name of the emitter that I've chosen. So it's named here and it's named here also. This is, again, super handy because let's say I have maybe a second particle in there and I can switch back and forth between the two of these and know exactly which one I'm going to be interacting with based on the name. So I click on it, I can see there's this one at frame 0, there's this one starting at frame 18, and obviously, as I mentioned before, these can be moved. Continuing with the UI tour. So up here we have our viewer window for the final output. I'm just going to click Command 1 to switch the workspace and bring this up, be a little bit bigger. And notice now I've got this little timeline, I call this the mini timeline, where I can drag through it, it's interactive. I can drag through and see the animation playing. I've got trim markers here, so if I only wanted to preview a short section of that timeline, and I press the play key, now this is playing. I'm sure it's like a little staggered on your end, but that's just due to the latency in the internet. It has nothing to do with the actual rendering itself on this system because, as I said, this is GPU, so it's rendering in real time, regardless of the type of card that you're using. I can double click in here and reset those trims back to the opposite ends. And now I've got a preview of the entire clip, the entire source clip that I have loaded in here. So play controls, play, move backwards by a single frame, 10 frames all the way to the back. Then we've got these like interesting looking key icons. So this is animation. So if I turn this on, any change that I make to any parameter will be recorded over time, and it will instantly create keyframes for us. So just to show you how that works, if I were to say, come back to the beginning here, let's start at frame 0, and I'll just go into, say, the opacity value. And I'll click here, and I'll choose Bezier, and I'll type in 0. So I type in the 0, hit enter. A couple of things happened. One, this box now has a red outline indicating that there's animation taking place there. You'll notice it's happening in several other places too, which I haven't touched. That's because they are automatically keyframed and include animation. And the other thing that happens is you get this little icon right in here. And this is showing me that I've got Bezier interpolation chosen for this particular animation. So I'm going to click here, and then I'm just going to drag this value up to 100. And I'll set this to Bezier also. And what else happens? So if we look down in the graph view down at the bottom, you'll notice that I've got these Bezier handles. And these Bezier handles are completely interactive too, so I can set them to make a soft ramp up of any parameter that is included in the system that we're working with. So I've just like ramped up the opacity for this particle system. And remember when I mentioned that these are not just like, it's not just a particle that you're dealing with or a single emitter. These can be multiple emitters because they're systems. So if we scroll down, we'll notice that, you know, we've got the basic shape. This is a point. It could be a point, a line. It could be an ellipse or an area, or even a circular shape, which is emitting particles. So this is what the emitter, the shape of the emitter is basically how is it going to look? What is it going to push out? What kind of a shape is going to be emitting these bits and pieces that make up the particle? So these are like our basic parameters, and these all appear down in the graph view as normal. And notice down here we've got a full readout of the different frames in time as we're dragging across. You know, we can see I'm at frame 48 now, I'm at frame 24, et cetera, et cetera. So these are normal parameters. And if I scroll down, you'll notice there are some other things here too. Over life parameters. And the difference between a normal parameter and over life is that the graphs are totally different. So normal parameter, we've got this white CTI, current time indicator, this white bar going across showing us where we are in time. And we've got a readout of the entire length of the clip to which we've applied this filter. Yet if I click on the number over life, notice it has over life in the name, the CTI turns to red, indicating that it's a little bit different than the other types of parameters. And also, the graph goes from 0 to 1. That's because this is showing us what's happening to that particle system over the life of the particle itself. So the particles, they don't know anything about the length of the clip to which it was applied. All these particles know about is, well, how long do I live? When do I die? What happens in between? And that's what is determined inside of this graph. So you can go in and you can set things like the size over life, like how big is it when it starts, when it first is birthed from the emitter, and how big is it at the end when it dies. So because particles have a finite lifespan, just like everything else, right? They have a birth and they have an end. And at the end, you know, you can set it to be like a very large one of the ends. You can have it animate so it becomes big in the middle and it's small at the end of its life. So possibilities are endless. So I just want to point out there are two different types of graphs in here that you can work on. So there's the over life and there's the normal type of graph. So I just showed you a simple explosion, but just to give you an idea of some of the other things that are inside of particle illusion in terms of effects and elements. Let's click on this and I'll just make the screen bigger. And this is a fully interactive UI. I can reconfigure this pretty much any way that I want to have it. And when I click in here, I get this great preview of the effects that are included in particle illusions. And there are some tremendous effects there. Fireworks, drag and drop, click. What editor would not want to have this around the 4th of July or New Year's Eve or some other like party-themed time when they're creating particles? They don't have to go to the graphics department. They don't have to go anywhere. They just like drag and drop this on their timeline. As I mentioned, I'm showing you inside of particle illusion inside of Adobe After Effects, but I can be in any of these supported hosts for particle illusion, which includes Avid Media Composer, Adobe Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, you know, any of these things. If I want to create a nice background, I can do that. Let's scroll down and have a look at some of the other like really cool effects that are in here. These are all categorized. So there's cartoon style animations, there's these creatures, and before I've got Into Flames, and notice this has MB at the end of the name. That's because it includes motion blur. And motion blur is enabled and disabled or actuated and deactivated by the stage menu, or you can go Command or Control B. So there's a meadow. Very cool, huh? There's a quick flash. There's a bazillion different things here. Well, actually, 2,400. So some blue flames, some more sparks, some great looking stuff. As I drag through, they follow the cursor. Really dynamic and fun to work with. There's some HUDs, so heads-up display. So these are really cool elements that you might want to add to like a computer screen if you're like doing some comping and you're creating this like sci-fi scene with a lot of computer-driven animations that you want to have on the screens, or maybe this overlay over another object. Let's say, for instance, let's work with this one. So I'll just go in and come back up here, and I'll just start deleting the emitters that I've already added in there. I'll move the time back to frame 0, double-click this, and automatically it's added to the middle of the scene. I'm just going to go Command 3 to adjust the size of the stage view, which is where I want to have a look, and I'll just increase this. And there's our very cool particle system. If I like this and I'm happy with it, and I don't need to make any changes, I can simply click Apply, and I'm back in the host. So before I do that, I just want to show you this one little thing here, zoom. So if I wanted to increase the size of this, I might zoom this up, and you notice it gets bigger and bigger, and it's still very cool looking. Maybe I'll set it to there, and I'll hit Apply. So as I come back into the host environment, there's our particle system, just as we created inside of the custom user interface. But in here, we've also got some other really cool options that I wanted to go over quickly. So if I just scroll down here, you'll notice a thing called the Pixel Chooser. And I have, of course, the legacy Pixel Chooser included with this filter, as well as every other filter in the Continuum package. And the Pixel Chooser is a matte and masking system, which enables me to create mask shapes, like geometric primitives, such as an egg shape, an oval, a circle, a rectangle, gradient shapes, and I can even use this to create Mocha spline shapes, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But Mocha spline shapes can be used as a hold-back mask shape for any particle effect. And I can also use pixel-based mats, so I can take the luma values from an underlying source shot and use this to hold back the foreground that I'm working on creating. So that's really the basics of it. I'm going to jump into another one of these comps now and show you some other exciting features that are included in Particle Illusion, one of which is a motion tracker, right? So what would particles be without a motion tracker? They'd be a static particle system, and might not be as much fun as that, and certainly would not be as useful. So for instance, as I drag through time, we'll notice that our cruiser, our liner here, is spewing some, we'll call it steam, some nice steam going off into the sky there, right? So where did the steam come from? But of course, particle illusion. Here's the shot originally, there's the steam. So how did I do this? Let's just quickly launch the Particle Illusion UI, and I'll show you I have this one emitter, which is in there. And instead of previewing this over the background, I'm going to preview over black so that you can see what this emitter is doing. And I'll just click a little bit down through the timeline. You'll notice there's the steam cloud, and it's positioned up in this top left corner. It's positioned up here because I've driven it with the motion tracker. Notice up here, the position XY is 0, 0, and 0, 0 is actually the center, the dead center of the comp. So when I first applied this shoot smoke 1, for instance, let's go and type in that name, shoot smoke 1. Oh, shoot smoke, right, okay. We'll use one of these, and I'll just twirl that up, and I'll click on hide in this little, what we call a hamburger menu. So down in here, these are some of the shoot smokes, and if this was the one I liked, I simply double click it, and what happens is you'll notice that, well, this is being driven by the motion tracker. So what's going to happen is this is going to automatically reposition the point based on that tracking data. So let's just go and cancel that because I don't want to save that change. And I'll show you what it would look like without any of that. So I'll choose transforms none. And now notice the particle has jumped into the center of the screen. And when I launch Particle Illusion Custom UI again, of course, there's our particle system. So there's the smoke. I just double clicked it. I added it to the center of the screen. I did nothing else to this in this view except click on the apply button. And when I clicked on the apply button, they're right there in the center. But we wanted them to come off this turret in the top of the ship. So to do that, we have to actually do some motion tracking. And to track it, first thing we do is to enable some transforms. And I'll say I want to track the emitter, because in this instance, I want these particles to drift off in time and not be locked in a vertical plume. So if I were to choose world, and the difference basically between choosing world and choosing emitter, if I choose the emitter, particles will drift because I am animating the position of the particle center. If I choose world, what I'm actually animating is the world system or the camera, which is giving us our world view. So if I just move around the scene, which is like adjusting and transforming the camera, then we don't get the same result that we get with the emitter. The plume will still go vertical because it's not actually being animated. But if we choose emitter, the plume will become animated and will move in the direction of the motion. So let's go ahead and track this. I'll just twirl this open. I'll click Launch Motion Tracker. And by default, it comes up with these points. So I'll just go and take these away, just delete them and close this, and it will reset this back down into default for me. Now I'm going to click on Motion Tracker, and again, it brought up a brand new emitter offset. So here's the emitter offset. So I'll just grab this and place this over the top of the ship. And there's our actual emitter itself. So the first thing I moved was the tracking area. The second thing, I'm going to add the point. So I'll put the point up at the top of the stack there. Not in the center. The center is what I'm tracking. The top is where the smoke is going to be positioned once I've completed the tracking and applied this tracking data. So the first thing I would do is to click on the Track Forward button. Now MoCA is going to track this planar shape. It's actually tracking a shape which is aligned with the surface of this star. So it's if the star was flat, and it's basically tracking that whole area. So while that's tracking, a quick look at the new user interface of MoCA, everybody. So MoCA has undergone a transformation, and we now have what's called an Essentials panel. And in this Essentials panel, we've taken away all of those buttons that could be confusing and could get in the way and could like drive your mind crazy, and suddenly you're thinking, oh gosh, what's going on? What do I have to do to like animate this? Why are all these buttons there? Well, with the Essentials workspace, we've taken care of that and we've removed them all. But you can switch back at any time. For instance, go to Classic. Now you can see there's the Classic UI with all of these buttons everywhere, and it's a little confusing, to be honest with you. So the great guys on the MoCA team, they went and they revamped it and created this new UI for us. So there's our point. It's tracked. It's locked in well. I'm just going to close this and choose Apply by clicking Save. And now as I click through, there's our point. It's still stuck there because I haven't actually told it to be offset with that tracking data. If I turn on the Show Motion Path and just zoom up a little bit, and I'll pan across, there we go. You can see there's the path that we've recovered, the motion. Let's drag through, and we'll set this to be the emitter offset, and I'll tell it to track, not the none, but I'll tell it to track the emitter itself. Turn off the motion path, and just zoom back out a little bit. And my emitter is offset from where I was expecting it to be. Oh, I saw it over there. Let's go, and there it is on the right-hand side. And I'm just going to reposition this along the X and bring it up a little higher. And there's our tracked plume, moving along nicely with the ship. But say if you, gosh, I need it to be bigger. So what do I do? Do I have to jump back into the custom UI to do that? Nope. You can simply go in and switch from just emitter to emitter and world for the transforms. And when we do that and open up the world transforms, I now have the ability to go and adjust the scale of this plume. I can make it very big or very small. And I can go in and squish it by adjusting the scale X or Y independently. I can even rotate it. So it's rotating around its world center. And so I just set that back to 0. And there's our tracked plume. So tracking in particles, isn't that fantastic? Exactly what everybody wants to do with these things, right? So let's have a look at another instance of tracking, emitter versus world. So in this shot, I've just done the same thing. Let's turn off our particle system here. And there's our our red Mustang. This is street legal, by the way. Haha. Anyway, let's turn on the particle illusion system, and you can see now there are these flames that I've tracked onto the side, and they're pouring out of the cars that's racing down that drag strip. And in this instance, you'll notice, of course, in the control panel that this is set to world. So why did I set this to world and not into emitter? Because if I go to emitter, see what happens? The particles are way down here because the particles, as they're moving over time, the emitter is constantly being animated and is spewing out particles. So this doesn't work, as you see. I've got a trail, which is cool and fun and all that, but it's not selling the shot. What sells the shot is to have that track to the side. So that's why I use world for this particular shot. So that's in a nutshell the difference between using a world tracking or emitter tracking. And of course you can do both, right? Just as we saw on my last comp. So that is the particle system overview. So let's see. Next thing I wanted to show you is, for that I'm going to just jump over into Avid. And I'm just going to go down and find my Avid here. There it is. Let's open it up. And let's double click on lens flare tracking comp. So I'm just going to choose this, and I'm going to come into my effects controls. So, okay, there we go. So let's have a look at the scene. As I drag through, I've got this great lens flare, which is synthetic lens flare. And this mountaineer is going up the mountain, and there's another mountaineer behind this guy, and they're shooting the scene. So as he's shooting up, he's facing the sun. That's why he gets the lens flare, right? Well, of course, this is, if I click on it, go to my effects controls. If I bypass it, you can see it's completely fake. So there is the lens flare 3D. How did I do that? Well, let's go and remove that filter. And I'll go into my effects controls here, and I will go to BCC lights, and I will take the continuum lens flare 3D and drop it onto this shot. So one thing you'll notice here inside of the Avid is every effect here is now green dot, no more blue dot effects. And that's because we have Mocha in here as our tracker, not the old Boris FX tracker that we developed custom in-house, but the Mocha tracker. And the Mocha tracker is simply amazing. It is a great way to lock into any feature over time and apply that data, not just to a mask shape, as you may have seen in earlier versions of the product, but also now to parameters. So we have what's called a parameter tracker. So let's launch the motion tracker inside of the lens flare. And of course it tells me, hey, you're in yellow-green mode, which I can see down here and I was fully aware of before, but it's giving me a reminder. And if I click suppress warning, this will not come up again until I relaunch the Avid. So I'd rather not do that. Instead, I'll just choose continue. So I'll continue to work in yellow-green mode because I know that the resolution in this shot is going to be good enough in yellow-green. So again, remember how I positioned a tracker source. So this is a search area. So it's going to consider this as a plane. And there's our light source. And I'm going to position the light, say, up in the sky there. As you can see, these do not have to be in the same spot. So I can track anything and have that data be relative to the light source over there. So let's go and track this. I'll click the track button. And again, you can see I'm in the Mocha Essentials user interface here, or workspace, however you like to refer to it. But it's just nice and clean. It's very easy to work with. And as you can see up here, it's doing GPU tracking. So that was another great feature inside of Mocha 6 was the addition of GPU tracking, which is super fast. It's just blazing through the shot. It was completely successful in tracking that data. Let's grab that point there. As you can see, rock solid lock onto the object in the scene. And all I need to do now is close and save and come back into the Avid timeline. In the Avid timeline now, as I drag through, you'll notice that this is fully tracked. No more work is required from me except to fine-tune the result. So one thing I might want to do is to reposition where this light is in the scene. So remember, I intentionally chose to put it in this spot here, but maybe like producer, director, somebody comes back to me and says, hey, gosh, you know, we really wanted it in a different part of the sky. It doesn't belong there at all. So I can reposition this by offsetting the tracking data. And this looks like a better spot for it. And I'm going to come back up to the top and increase the intensity of the flare. And now there's my lens flare, all tracked in and ready to go. Done in a very, very short amount of time as compared to doing this by other methods. So that's the Mocha parameter tracker. And while we're at it, let's talk about some other very cool new Mocha features, such as the magnetic spline tool. So, okay, here's a shot. It's a lockdown camera shot. This guy is like got this beautiful animation there, but I want to do some color correction. I want to do a treatment to the sky. And to do a treatment to that sky, whoops. To do a treatment to that sky, what I need to do is to isolate the sky from the foreground, from the grass here, and our bovine friends. So I'm going to do that all inside of the filter that I'm going to use as the treatment. So I'll go to my film style effects, and I'll choose say fast film glow. I'll just grab that and drop it onto this clip, and open up the effects controls. And as we can see, you know, we've got this glow, and it's affecting the entire shot. Dragging intensity up. Obviously, that's one of the main parameters in a glow is intensity. Another one is, of course, the threshold. So if I drag this down more, the clip is considered for the glow. But more importantly, and back on to topic, is down at the bottom here, I've got the pixel chooser with Mocha. So let's twirl that open a little bit. And I'm going to launch the Mocha mask track, and it'll automatically turn on the Mocha pixel chooser for me. And what we want to do is rotoscope out the tree. Yes, I am serious. And I can tell you I can rotoscope this tree in a very, very short amount of time, and without all of the effort and elbow grease and frustration that would be normally experienced by a roto artist. In fact, I don't have to be a roto artist, but just to give you an idea of what it would take if I was using a regular spline tool. So Mocha uses X splines, which are fantastic because I don't have to actually adjust the Bezier handles when I'm creating a spline shape, but look what I have to do. Click, 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 click. Oh gosh. So it would be a lot of work. It would take me like quite a little bit of time to isolate that. So instead of that, I'm just going to delete that shape and show you our new Mocha magnetic tool shape. So this time, I'm just going to click a starting point, say here, and I'll just freehand drag. So I'm going to click and drag to get that little bit of the sky. And now I can let the software do all this work for me. So I'm just moving around. Let's add a click here and a click there. And isn't this just amazing? How sweet is that to be able to go in and create this wonderful isolation mat. And look at that. Boom. And we'll just pan down here and click another point, just pan across by holding down the X key, of course. And click again, and X key to pan down some more. Oh, here we go, and just drag across. Wow, this is painful. Oh, ooh. And let's finish out the spline manually. Up, and right click to close. And of course, these are modifiable. Look at that. I can go in and reshape. So for any time that the wonderful magnetic spline tool didn't give me exactly what I want, I can go in and reshape those spline points. I can add to this, subtract to it, just as you would any other normal Mocha spline. I'll just use the Z key to zoom back out again, and X to pan over, and you can see there's our wonderful mat. So I want to use this, and I'll just click close. So if your jaws aren't on the ground already, I don't know what to put them there. Let's go in and now start working with our effect. I'll maybe change the glow color. We'll make this more of a warm glow. Let's drag that down there, bring that up here. Okay, now I'm getting some cool sky, right? And we'll go in and adjust the glow intensity. Look at that, fantastic. Didn't have to be a roto artist, but I got some great roto out of this. It is awesome. Now, if I wanted to go and smooth this out a little bit, so this is a mask and not a mat. Remember the difference? Mat is pixel-based, mask is shape-based. So there's our matte shape. I'll just grab the feather tool and pop that up a bit just to feather it out and give it a little bit more of a soft edge. And if I go back into the Mocha part and turn on View Matte, there you can see the matte that we just created and feathered, and there's our result. So what's fantastic about this is, just to close out the whole Mocha thing, is that if I jump back into Mocha again, let's just click on that Launch Mocha button. And I'll just go and take this and save this project. I'll export it out to the desktop. And we'll call this, Sky Roto Mag Tool. And hit save. And I'm going to close this. And now I'm going to say, gosh, I really wish I'd used a different filter because this one looks terrible. Gone. And let's get maybe the fast film process filter. I'll drop that onto this shot. And let's go and choose a preset. We'll go into the, let's see, the wonderful FX browser. And I'm going to start like sifting down through, and I'll be like, whoa, these look cool. And maybe this is the look that I really wanted. So let's apply it. And gosh, what happened? Lost the mask, right? So let's go down into the pixel chooser and we'll launch Mocha again, and I'll hit continue. And I don't have to redo that work because I can go and merge the project, and we go to the desktop, and where's my sky? There it is, down here somewhere, there it is. And Sky, Mag Tool, Mocha, and same matte. Let's close it, hit save, done. Then I can go into the, let's see, Pixel Chooser Mask Group and just add in a little bit of feather again, blend in those edges. There we go. So the wonderful Mocha coming to the aid of every filter in Continuum, and I might add every filter in our sister Sapphire product. So I could actually save out this, this Mocha Sky Mask, and then I could replace this filter with a Sapphire effect if that was more suitable for the project I'm working on. So that is Magnetic Spline Tool. We've still got about 10 minutes left, 15 minutes left, and I wanted to show you some more new features. One of them is Title Studio. So Title Studio, like other effects in Continuum, has gone through some changes. And one of the changes that it went through was not only is it a little easier to use now, and it has some cleaned up user interface, but it also has some brand new shaders. And what is a shader, you may say? What's a shader? Well, a shader is, in Title Studio, is a way for us to apply materials. So material shaders are a great way to add to a scene. And to do that, let's just go out. I've already applied like Title Studio to the shot. If I bypass it, there's the original shot. There's the little piece of text that I created. I'm just going to launch the Title Studio user interface. Here's the custom UI for Title Studio. It's a lot cleaner now. So we've cleaned up the look. The icons are all a little bit more different. There's some new icons there, such as the on-screen text tool. And if I click that, I can now click on the text, and we'll call this one new. And there's our text element, and we'll just go and drag this up in the screen. There's our new piece of text. And I'll double click it. And there's the text there inside of our text window. I can go in and change the font on a part of it, on all of it. Let's go to something beefy, like, what do we like here? I think Arial Black is a good beefy font. It'll show off the texture as well. Just give it a little bit of tracking. And finish with the text. So I'll just click on the top level. As you can see, I've got on-screen controls for positioning it. I can adjust this pivot point. So I've got it set to anchor into center. I can adjust where the anchor is. I can offset the anchor just as you would expect. So I can rotate around different centers in the shape. Or on the image itself, I can set the anchor to the middle and then just like rotate around that middle. But speaking of rotation, this is, as you can see, a flat object. It's a card in space, but it's reflecting the light because it's aware of this full 3D environment that we're in. Now the text that I have below it is a 3D text, And you can see the difference there in the icons there. There's, if I click on motocross there, if I click on the shape type, this is an extrusion. If there's our new, if I needed to like switch this from being just like flat text, I can easily switch this over to an extrusion. Now this is 3D text also, and just like the particle system that I showed you, this is all OpenGL. And so this will, again, render on AMD or NVIDIA cards in real time when you're interacting with it. So one of the new things that I wanted to show you, a couple of them. Well, one is material styles. And so we have these new material styles in here, such as textured chrome. If I double click one of these, now I've added textured chrome to this element, and let's just zoom in a little bit so you can see it. I'll just switch this to fit. So we'll scale it up there. And again, fully scalable UI. You can see there's the steel plate that I've applied to this motocross shot, and then there's like got this other texture in there, and I can just keep applying textures until I get something that I'm satisfied with. These thumbs are scalable, by the way. And let's go maybe look at some fabric textures. There's some cool fabrics. Got this like great leopard print, or this kind of like black silk look, or maybe this headboard look, and I think it looks kind of cool. So if I'm satisfied with that, I'll just keep it as is. And up at the top here, you'll notice this the pull-down menu called shaders. And shaders includes two different groups of options. One is deformers. And deformers are essentially ways to interact with this piece of text in full 3D. So if I choose maybe bend, taper, twist, and let's go to the controls. You'll notice now these are the controls for bend, taper, twist. And I'll take the bend strength. I can just wrap this in real time. Look at that. And I can go in and add a taper. I can add a twist. Let's grab the twist. I can twist this around and create these like corkscrew animations, because everything here is fully animatable. And of course, everything is in full real time. And let's spin this. Now I can spin this around that center. Maybe remember I mentioned pivots. So it's pivoting right now around that center point, but I could adjust this. I could offset the pivot. I can offset the anchor. So I can have this like pivot around the center of the shot very easily without having to do too much work. So this is just one deformer shader. I'm going to click on the shader down here and delete it. I can stack them, but that's not what I want to show right now. Let's have a look at another one of these shaders. I'll just click right at the beginning of the timeline and say deformers mesh shatter. So what's a mesh shatter? Yep. Shatters this into full 3D and 3D space. You've got control over how it's going to crack up, how it's going to break up, what size the shards are. You've got complete control over the time. It is set to automated right now, so it starts animation at frame 0, but I could set this to manual. And if I set it to manual, then it relies on user interaction to determine when is it going to start shattering. So I could say start a linear shatter from here, and right here I want to finish the shatter. And so we'll just adjust the manual time. There it is, shatters and falls off. And now I've got this animation where I've got a logo, which is just shattering up into bits and pieces on cue from keyframes, which I've set in the timeline. So that's the mesh shatter filter. And that's what a deformer is inside of Title Studio. But we've also got these other kinds of shaders. Image processors. So these are referred to as IP shaders, image processing shaders. There's a multitude of different names for them, pixel shaders. But for this, we've called them image processors. Now, image processors could be a glow. If I choose glow edge, now let's apply a glow right around the edge of the object. Choose the blur, I can soften that out. I can use the image color for the glow. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? Yep. I can stack them, I can replace them. I've just deleted that one. Let's go in to more shaders and maybe choose, say, a light rays. If I choose a light rays, now I've got a volumetric lighting shader applied to the shot. And there's the center, this little red dot here. So if I grab that, start moving it around, you notice now I've got this cool looking volumetric lighting. And there are some great options with the volumetric lighting. So, I mean, if I place this into the center, I've obscured the text, right? It's very difficult for me to see the actual text that is being added to the screen. And that is, of course, ruinous for the shot. But if I go to apply modes, I can now choose add. So I can have an add mode, I can have a screen mode, or I can put it behind. So the text is always in front, even though it's created this volumetric lighting based on the text shape itself. So how cool is that? That's pretty cool. So that's some of the big new things inside of Title Studio. In addition to what I've just shown you, of course, we've got now this updated grids and guides feature. So let's see, in my preview section up here, I can turn on the grid, and I can turn on rulers and guides. Now I can drag out a guide from here, and I can use this to like easily place elements and have them snap as I drag a guide into the scene. So just like click there and drag it over, guides appear. I can set this text to snap to the guide or to the rule or to both guides and rules. So pretty industry standard stuff there. Let's see, we've also got now a 2D and a 3D composite mode inside of here. So with the 2D composite mode, essentially it works like any 2D compositor would work, like Photoshop or After Effects when it's in its 2D environment mode. So if I click here and choose switch to 3D render, it changes the environment. So right now, essentially, when you're in 2D mode, what is on top of the scene is what is on top in terms of the final composite. So as I drag this piece of text over that piece of text, they all of a sudden now start stacking with the new one on top. But if I switch this container over to a 3D renderer, notice a big difference. Now I need to tell the filter who is going to be in front by not adjusting its position in terms of where it is in the stack, but by moving it in Z space. So I do scaling in Z, I can position in Z, move it backward, move it forward. Notice it's moving forward past the light there in the container. So it's a great new feature. And again, super fast renderer and real-time, easy to position all of these elements in our comp window. So that's about what I have to show you today. So just to recap some of the cool things that we saw a great new particle system with particle illusion. We saw a parameter tracking using the powerful Mocha planar tracker to drive a lens flare position parameter. We looked at some of the new essentials in Mocha UI, that great, easy to use new UI, the wonderful, the magnificent magnetic spline tool, which we just saw, which takes all the elbow work out of creating a spline shape. And we just had a look at the new features that are inside of Title Studio. So that's about it from me, guys. I'm going to pass this back to Jesse now. If anybody has any questions, I'm online for a few more minutes. I know the guys, both my colleagues Brian and Alan, have been back there answering your questions at a furious rate. So if anybody has anything they want to ask me or bring up, I'm here. And so back over to you, Jesse. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Peter. I don't know if Brian or Alan want to go over any questions, but beforehand, I just wanted to tell everyone who the raffle winners are. Congratulations to Alvin Mitchell, who has won the one-year subscription to the Foundry Production Collective. Congratulations to Catherine Gross, who has won the online class from Future Media Concepts. Congratulations to Luc Dumas, who has won the one-year Avid Media Composer subscription. Congratulations to Julia Fott, who has won the one-year Vegas Pro subscription. We have 5 winners of $200 gift certificates to Action VFX. Those winners are Margot McQuaig, Philippe Plazas, Nancy Elric Foreman, Ido Carilla, and Scott Clamp. And finally, congratulations to Joanne Hadlin, who has won the Boris FX suite. You'll be receiving emails from me shortly with all your information. Brian, do you have anything you want to go over?
Hello, everybody. Lots of great questions in the forums. I think overall, one thing to point out that obviously Continuum and everything we saw here with particle illusion and all the great improvements with Title Studio Mocha, we demoed here in Media Composer and After Effects, but Continuum supports a wide range of host applications, including Vegas and HitFilm and a whole bunch of OFX applications. There is a slight limitation with Resolve, and this really applies to all plugins, but the free version of Resolve, third-party plugin developers like ourselves, we only get access to 1 frame. in the free version of Resolve. So something like PI, you can use particle occlusion, but you're not going to see your full clip in the free version of Resolve. If that's important to you, definitely upgrade to the $299 Studio Resolve version, and then you'll have full clip access. And that is the same with Mocha as well. So you won't be able to track in the free version of Resolve. You really need the Studio version for that as well. Lots of other questions. One question I didn't know, Peter, I don't know if you know offhand. Does Title Studio support Hebrew text? I know it supports right to left, but does it support Hebrew?
Yes, so it supports Hebrew. It supports any TrueType font, any PostScript font. It is vector text, so everything is razor sharp regardless of the size or the font family that is being used. You can convert any font into a pure vector object and adjust splines accordingly. And it's left, right, and top down, serving pretty much every market in every corner of the world.
That's great. One other thing to point out with a few questions too, particle occlusion is now part of the Continuum Particles unit as well. So that's actually a fantastic deal. So if anyone out there has actually purchased a particle unit, you can upgrade and you get particle occlusion will obviously become part of the upgrade. So that's a great deal as well. And if you're looking to just get PI, definitely the best deal right now is the Continuum Particles unit. That's it. That's it from me for questions from the forums, though. Lots of great questions. Like Peter was correct; they were coming fast and furious, but lots of great questions.
Cool. Well, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
And for being in the back end and answering all that, and for all this great information too. And Alan for being back there and answering. I mean, cheers to both you guys, and for Jesse for making all this happen and hosting. And that's it from us. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a nice weekend.